Growing up is something that everyone does, but throughout our time growing up, it's not just us who are getting older and changing. It's the media we intake, it's the places around us, it's the people around us, everything. When I was growing up, there was always a go-to game for me and my friends to play. Any of us were able to play with ease. The game wasn't hard, the game was fun, and it was a perfect entry into video games. It's a series called Mario Kart, and around late 2008, I had my first experience with Mario Kart, specifically Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. My grandma had a Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and one of the only games that she had for it was Super Mario Kart. It was pretty much just that and some Street Fighter game. One day when I was deciding on a game to play, I saw a cartridge sitting on a shelf. I wasn't really paying attention to what game it was, but I remember just picking it up and putting it into the system, turning it on, and looking at the old CRTV screen we had set up. I was greeted by a franchise that would come to change my life and make up a lot of my childhood time with my friends. I maneuvered through the menu, choosing Mario, and started the first Grand Prix. The first thing I noticed was just how simple the game was to understand. You pretty much just drove around the track. The controls weren't complicated either. It was fun to drive around the tracks, but I had one big issue. I had never won a single time. So, I know earlier I said that each Mario Kart game is pretty easy to understand and perform well in, but I lied. This one's really difficult for me when I was young, so much so that even after 30 minutes of playing, I just remember turning the system off and going to do something else. This trend, however, came to change when I decided to give the N64 a chance a few days later. This is what I would consider my first real experience with the Mario Kart franchise. We had a bunch of older consoles and games for them sitting in our basement, and we happened to be cleaning up our house a bit. My parents had set up all the consoles to the TV for me and my sister to use, and one afternoon, I grabbed the Mario Kart 64 cartridge and put it into the N64, and I clicked start. I was greeted by Mario saying, "Welcome to Mario Kart," a phrase that would always compliment this awesome experience. I'd start the game, click one player, click Grand Prix 50cc, and I would pick whatever Grand Prix that just looked the most appealing to me at the time. The first Grand Prix that I ended up playing in this game was the Star Cup. I remember my first time playing, I used Wario Stadium to learn the controls, and I didn't perform very well, but I had a good understanding of the controls and how to drift. Albeit, I didn't drift often because I wasn't good. Now, the part where I realized that this game was amazing was on the second track of the Star Cup, Sherbert Land. This track was phenomenal to me. It was extremely fun, and I figured out how the items work and how to play the game on this track. On this track was the first time that I ever placed first in a Mario Kart game, and man did it feel good. Before I realized it, I had played every track I could, and I would frequently over the next few months replay all of the Grand Prix at various speed. This game had me hooked on Mario Kart, and I loved it. The fun colors, designs, appealing characters that I've always seen. This game really felt like something magical. Some of the tracks I had the most fun on, even today, come from this game. This game was so brilliantly designed that it's hard for me to appreciate newer tracks from newer Mario Kart games just because of how great these were. Whenever I think of this game, I think of one of my last experiences with the game before we had lost our N64 a few months later, and it was on Rainbow Road. I remember being on 150cc driving down Rainbow Road, drifting, absolutely stunned by how awesome this course was, and I was in first place and ended up winning. It was my first time I managed to win on Rainbow Road at 150cc. It was just a really difficult track. I remember being so excited that once again, I was running around my room and I ran into my mom, who was happy for me. She ended up taking me out to eat with my family to celebrate my success. Although we were probably planning on it anyways. But nah, it was because I did well. Had to have been. Now, I don't really know what happened, but at some point a few of our consoles had disappeared within the next few months, and all I had left was my PlayStation 2 and a GameCube. I didn't own many GameCube games, but I had quite a few PlayStation 2 games, so I'd spend most of my time playing PlayStation 2 games such as Kingdom Hearts 2, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, and for some reason games like Madagascar. During the next year or so, I made close friends with my neighbors, and one day we went to play some video games, and they had a game that has forever influenced my life, even more than Mario Kart on the N64 did. They had Mario Kart Wii. They handed me a Wii remote and a little wheel attachment, and then they navigated through the Wii home menu to Mario Kart Wii. Now, I know you're thinking I skipped something, but trust me, I'll talk about those later. I just played the Mario Kart games out of order. So, this game was magical. This was the Mario Kart that I had put 99% of my time into. After navigating the menus, we wound up at the character select screen. There were 3 of us and Mario was taken. Luigi was also taken. I had to pick between the entire, from what they had unlocked, Mario Kart cast for who I wanted to play as. Now, I'd played Super Mario 64, Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, and New Super Mario Bros. 3, so I wasn't all that deep into the Mario universe. I knew just enough. The character that I wound up choosing was Toad. I chose Toad because he gave you stars in Super Mario 64, and I'd always found him to be a fun side character. This one decision has influenced my life more than you'd think. Even on Mario Wonder, which just released, I ended up playing as the blue Toad throughout my playthrough. Toad has ended up becoming one of my favorite Mario characters just because I associate all my fun memories with this game with Toad. We started the game and our first Grand Prix we did was the Mushroom Cup. Now, I was pretty experienced with Mario Kart 64, so I thought I would do well, but I was dead wrong. The game felt different, but not in a bad way. The thing that ended up being the strangest to me was the turning and drifting, but I'd figured it out by the time we completed our next few races. I began to perform well amongst my friends, and I had a blast with this game. I'm super nostalgic for the tilt controls for this game, as I used to use them almost always when I played this game with the wheel attachment. We continued through and played most of the tracks in the game, and I just knew that I had to get this game for myself. I remember getting to Sherbet Land on Mario Kart Wii and was absolutely blown away by how great the course looked, and I had known the course so well from Mario Kart 64 that it ended up being the first time that I'd beaten my friends at a race in this game. It was an amazing experience, and when I got home, I asked my parents about getting the game, and they just said something along the lines of, "We'll see." So for the next few months, whenever I would play games at my friend's house, it was almost always Super Smash Bros. Brawl or Mario Kart Wii. As December of 2009 approached, I received a copy of Mario Kart Wii for my birthday, and I had a small birthday party where I invited my neighbors. We set up the Wii in the living room and played Mario Kart Wii throughout half of the party, and it was awesome. It was cool being able to play in the living room where my parents usually don't let the consoles go, all on the bigger TV. It was really great having the game personally all for myself, and my friends were as excited as I was, and we all just kept playing the game. During our time playing together, we had unlocked a character, I think. I don't exactly remember what it was, but I was obsessed with unlockables in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, so I knew I had a mission: unlock everything in Mario Kart Wii. So after the birthday party ended, I loaded up the game with that exact mission in mind and began going to work. Now, I didn't really spend time on the internet, so I had no clue how to unlock some of these characters. All I knew was that if I kept playing, they would come naturally, just like how they did in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. So over time, I began unlocking new characters, new carts, and the other cups that were locked. I cleared 50cc, then 100cc, then 150cc, then mirror mode over the next few weeks. But I noticed something. I had done everything there was to do on the races, so why haven't I unlocked everything? I began thinking, and the answer was right in front of me. There were other game modes in this game, battle mode and something called time trials. Now, I'd played my fair share of battle mode, but I was never really a huge fan of it. It was fun for a while, but the more I played it, the more I felt like it wasn't really as fun as the races. Now, as I said previously, Mario Kart is a simple, fun, and easy game to both play and learn. It's truly a game and series for all ages and audiences. But for those who want to take the game a step further, there's a perfect mode for this. It's called the time trials. Now, I was unfamiliar with time trials and had this idea that I had to win stuck in my head from all of the races that I had done previously. So one might ask, how do you win time trials? What would you consider winning in this game mode? For some, it's beating yourself in a race and performing even better. For some, it's going for the leaderboards to become the best. For me, it may as well have been both. So I began going to work in the order of the Grand Prix, and I played each one of them once, then went back to beat my times, then went back again and again. I began to realize that this game mode is insanely addictive. You're racing only yourself. There's no items getting in the way, there's no other players messing with you, there's only you and the track. These were much more difficult to race than any of the CPUs have ever been, and much more difficult than what any of my friends were. I kept playing this mode, and on my favorite tracks, I would make the time as best as I could. I learned the best ways to drift, the best shortcuts, the most efficient places to use the mushrooms at, and the best boost pads to take. I had some of these courses completely figured out and optimized, and over time, I began to unlock some of the characters that were locked behind them. I didn't really notice, but a few times I must have raced the Nintendo staff ghosts and beat them, which allowed me to unlock more of the unlockables. Time went on and I eventually ended up unlocking everything I could in this game and had a brag-worthy golden profile that I took extreme pride in. I knew my friends didn't have one because I'd go to their house and see silvers on it, but mine, it was all gold. Now that I had done everything, I thought to myself what there was left to do. I love the game and want to keep playing it, but I'm really not going for an objective anymore. So I thought that I really liked the time trials and I had online on, so what if I went for the rankings? This single thought and objective would come bound to haunt me for the next year minimum. I had the objective of beating the best and becoming the best at all of my favorite tracks, but here's the issue that younger me didn't really have a concept of. The internet, speedruns, the tricks and meta that people use to maximize every small thing. I remember that on the Mushroom Gorge track, I wanted to get a super good time in, so I decided I was going to race the #1 time until I could beat it. The track started off like you usually would expect it to, up until the first corner. They turned around and I thought, this is gonna be super easy, what even are they doing? I completed my 3 laps to see that they had beaten me a long time ago. I was extremely confused, maybe I had missed something, so I decided to follow the ghosts to see exactly what they did, and they did something that absolutely rocked my world as a child. They jumped off of this mushroom and rode over this mountain and completed the lap in less than a quarter of the time it would have taken otherwise. I was completely astonished and knew that I had to learn this if I wanted to accomplish this goal of mine. So I began trying to copy the shortcut that they did. I matched their positions, their actions, the movements the best that I could, but I would just fall off the mountain and get voided out. That just wouldn't do. I restarted the level and win again, and for the next 6 months, when I was bored, I'd boot up Mario Kart Wii and do this on Mushroom Gorge. The #1 ranked person kept doing it better and faster, and I just couldn't keep up, even remotely. One time though, I did manage to successfully make it up the mountain, but I fell down super early and the lap just didn't count, and I was extremely upset. I might as well have had my first complete breakdown over a video game at this exact moment. I was never improving, I wasn't getting anywhere, the people in first just kept getting better, and I didn't know what was going on. Now, obviously behind the scenes, there's a whole community of speedrunners who are mastering these ultra shortcuts, following tutorials, guides, and racing with the top of the top on these leaderboards and sharing strategies in the most efficient ways of doing each and every single thing. I didn't have the slightest concept of this, due to how young I was, and just the idea of the internet being so big to have stuff like this was just foreign to me at the time. My whole perception of the internet was basically, you play games with people and you can look at images or upcoming games. That was pretty much it for a while. I ended up throwing in the towel on my Mario Kart Wii grind for first place in the time trials. I just accepted that it was going to be impossible and moved on after a while. I did, however, occasionally begin to play online, where I'd perform super well and usually get top 3, but it began to bore me, and slowly, by the end of 2010, I had about stopped playing the game. At this point, I would only occasionally play with my friends if they wanted to play some online lobbies or in person. Something that I would frequently do throughout these times when I wasn't really playing Mario Kart Wii was use the Mario Kart channel. It was a channel that was available if you had Mario Kart Wii, and it would display tournaments, ghosts, friends, and the rankings for each course. I would check it per occasion just to see how the times are slowly going down and compare my times with my friends who also began doing time trials. I loved this channel as it'd be on your Wii home screen and it was super easy to access, plus the music, man. This game's soundtrack is amazing. There's not a moment when you get bored of what you're listening to. Everything audio-wise in this game matches exactly what you would imagine, and especially the menu themes are super immersive and make me feel like I'm actually ready to race. Over time, my time playing Mario Kart Wii had died down, and I ended up receiving a DS for Christmas from my cousin who'd gotten a DSi. They gave me a copy of Super Mario 64 DS with it, and it was awesome. The portability of the DS was absolutely game-changing. The ability to play these really good games like Super Mario 64 on the go. My parents had gave me a small budget to go shopping with at GameStop, where I would pick up 2 DS games, New Super Mario Bros. And Mario Kart DS. I had seen my friends play Mario Kart DS sometimes, but we were unable to play it due to just how the DS was. So I never really had a chance to play it until this moment, and when I did, it was so awesome. It felt like Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 64 combined, and I loved how this game felt. This game and Super Mario 64 DS were my go-to games when I was in the back of the car being driven somewhere. I would whip out my DS, put my Mario Kart DS cartridge into the system, and play until we got to our destination. I played and ended up completing all of the Grand Prix and courses there, and eventually stumbled into the mission mode. I absolutely loved the mission mode in Mario Kart DS because it was single player content that was completely different from everything else I had experienced in the Mario Kart franchise. I loved fighting the bosses in these game modes, and the other missions were fun to make you even better at the game. It was a great solo time killer that I kind of wish that the new Mario Kart games had. I really wish that I had more to say about this game, but that's pretty much as deep as my experiences with it got. I played with my friends once through local multiplayer player, and it was cool to be able to sit and play with him like that, I guess. This pretty much entered a weird phase where I enjoyed Mario Kart, but maybe I had been consuming way too much of it. Actually, I'm almost entirely sure that me grinding the time trials on Mario Kart Wii was what burnt me out of the franchise. It's not that I regret it, but man, it definitely spoiled more of the fun I could have had with later entries, or entries that I had missed. One time I went to my friend's house and they wanted to play Mario Kart, and as usual I was interested in playing, but when they booted the Wii, it wasn't Mario Kart Wii that they had in the system. It was a GameCube game. Specifically, it was Mario Kart Double Dash. Now, I've owned a GameCube and a Wii, but I had never seen this game. The concept of this game is entirely different from any of the other Mario Kart games. You don't race against each other, you race together. Or well, at least that's what we did. It was 2 characters per kart, one that drove and the other that handled items and could help steer. I was unfamiliar with the game, so I ended up being the one who was throwing items, and it was honestly surprisingly fun. The physics of the game were more heavy, which made mistakes much more apparent and unforgiving. Oddly enough though, I'd like that a lot about this game. More recently, I did a playthrough with one of my friends where we unlocked everything in the game, and it's not an easy game by any means, and I had forgotten that. This game was fun, and for the next few times when we would play Mario Kart, we would begin to default to Mario Kart Double Dash, where we would play through some of the courses and take turns driving or managing the items. We even raced against each other a few times. I was starting to have fun with Mario Kart again. Unfortunately though, suddenly at one point we just stopped playing it together and I ended up forgetting about the game. I knew it existed, but I didn't really want it enough to go out and buy it, and I didn't really ask my neighbor at the time about playing it. Most Mario Kart sessions returned to being Mario Kart Wii, and it put me in a Mario Kart Wii mood again just for a little bit. It died off real quickly after I went back to the time trials. Now, I love time trials, but younger me really did not understand that I did not need to get first place in everything, so it just kept upsetting me. Now, my time with Mario Kart slowly stopped, and for a while, I didn't really play any Mario Kart outside of maybe 1 or 2 sessions of Mario Kart on the DS when I was on a ride somewhere. This time lasted until a handful of years later, where on Christmas Day of 2014, I got a Wii U. I wanted one desperately so I could get Mewtwo in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, because I thought he was going to be an exclusive character and I didn't want to miss out on that. So I asked my parents for a Wii U when that was announced, and I ended up getting the bundle with Super Mario 3D World, and a few months later I ended up receiving Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. I was pretty excited to have a new Mario Kart, and I loaded the game up and began doing what I would always do. I would immediately start clearing out the Grand Prix on each speed and unlock everything that I could. Here's the unfortunate issue that plagues this game. Unlockables in this game are mostly grind based. Sure, you complete the Grand Prix and you unlock the characters, but the kart customization unlockables were the worst possible way to integrate these unlockables into the game. So this game has kart customization, which is really cool. I spent a while making a ton of cool kart combinations to find which ones looked cool or which ones I liked using or just had the best stats. To unlock them, you have to collect coins in races, where you can collect up to 10 coins in each race. You lose coins by getting hit by items, which is super frequent in Mario Kart. In order to unlock each of the kart customization options, you need to have gained 10,000 coins. That means 1,000 races where you've collected 10 coins in each race. Now, I love Mario Kart as much as the next guy, but this is insane! I love games that have a ton of unlockables. That's why I loved Super Smash Bros. Brawl so much, because you could unlock so many things and actively use and look at them. This game felt like there weren't any real unlockables outside of the few characters that you could unlock, which is just, it's such a weird feeling to describe. I feel like this mechanic would have been at least a little bit better if there was a shop or something to spend coins at, but instead how things work is that at each interval of 100 coins, the game gives you a random kart part up until a certain point. The order that you unlock things at is completely random, so you have no idea what you're gonna get, which is fun, but not if you're trying to unlock a certain part. Now, with all that said, this game has fantastic tracks, outside of Rainbow Road. Fantastic tracks, just great tracks, and this game is also gorgeous. For a Wii U game, this game looks absolutely beautiful. Each track, texture, material, everything just looks so pretty and polished, so it's really a shame that some of the mechanics are lacking. Accompanied by these beautiful tracks are some of the best songs that I've ever heard in a video game. Just listen to this. Dude, it's so good. Now, these are Mario Kart 8's biggest redeeming factors for me. Honestly, I've probably spent more time listening to this game's soundtrack than actually playing the game, which is a shame because the game's good, but if I'm going to play a Mario Kart game, I think I would opt in for almost any other title. With all that said though, as of late I feel like I've played a lot of Mario Kart 8. Between the ease of access of the Nintendo Switch and all of the DLC that's released, I found myself having a lot of fun just booting up the game and playing. It's a super easy to access Mario Kart title where it's not hard to get into the game and play well, and I kinda love that about this game. The additions that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe had over the base game were fantastic additions. They added another item slot similar to Mario Kart Double Dash, they added an additional drifting turbo, and they fixed the game's battle mode, and more. At the end of the day, Mario Kart 8 was fantastic, but I just think it was at a time in my life where it didn't really fit in. More recently, when I have played it, I felt a lot different about this game from how I did around that time when I was originally going through it, and I enjoy it a lot more. Maybe just a newfound appreciation for it, I don't really know. It wasn't until a little after my initial impressions of Mario Kart 8 when I played Mario Kart 7. I had gotten a 3DS the Christmas before I got my Wii U, and I loved the system so much. Compared to the Wii U, I think I ended up spending more of my time playing games around this time on my 3DS. One afternoon, my mom ended up surprising me with a copy of Mario Kart 7, and I was super excited. I loved Mario Kart on the DS, and this game was a really great follow-up to the original DS version. It was great for racing through tracks and playing the game, but there was a similar issue that Mario Kart 8 had that plagued this game. It was the unlockables. It worked identical to Mario Kart 8, and I ended up deciding that I wouldn't focus on unlocking things. So I spent a majority of my time playing in the online Grand Prix lobbies that people would run and had a blast playing through those online each night. I have a memory of a super close and competitive race on a mushroom-only lobby on one of the Woohoo Island tracks from Wii Sports Resort, which, by the way, those Woohoo Island tracks are one of the coolest things about Mario Kart 7. I absolutely loved Wii Sports Resort, and seeing these tracks' inclusion in this game was absolutely awesome. I pretty much played online 90% of the time on Mario Kart 7, and it was great. That said, other than playing online a lot, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this game, but it was a very, very good Mario Kart on the 3DS. Mario Kart 7 made me realize that Mario Kart really is all about the multiplayer. Mario Kart 7 didn't have the greatest single-player content lineup, but all of the online and multiplayer lineups were great. I think the reason why I felt so weird about Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart 8 around these times were that I just didn't have a whole lot of people to personally play these games with multiplayer-wise, which is why playing Mario Kart 7 online kind of gave me a newfound perspective of the series. Now, the last Mario Kart game that I ended up playing was Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Wii U's Virtual Console. Now, I had a Game Boy, but I never had Super Circuit, unfortunately. This game, though, man, this game gives me nostalgia for a game that I never really grew up with. It's so incredibly charming, and it feels like Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64 combined and made the most classic, great-feeling Mario Kart game. There's not really a huge amount of unlockables in this game, but I had a blast playing through all the courses, and it reminded me just for a moment of when I was younger and first played Mario Kart Wii. That sense of curiosity. Now listen, I can have as many problems as I'd like to have with the newer Mario Kart titles, but there's something undeniable about the series. It's just something magical. There's not a single thing that the series does that is bad by any means. The music, the tracks, the characters, the item, the carts, every single thing that this franchise has makes it all the more better. Sure, I may have absolutely lost my mind doing those time trials of Mario Kart Wii, but at the end of the day, I still had fun. It's something that's super difficult to describe, but Mario Kart has and will always be the perfect franchise to just pick up a controller and play with friends. It's simple fun that's extremely beginner friendly. Then you have the dudes who are just snake drifting like crazy. Yeah, okay, maybe those people aren't beginner friendly, but that's fine. If those time trials taught me anything, it's that no matter how simple a game is, it's much more than just something simple. It's the memories, the fun, the concepts, every single thing that comes together to make the experience what it is. This series is purely fueled by those things, which means that it doesn't really have to be anything more than just a simple racing game. Now that the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC has concluded its release, I'm hoping that Nintendo will begin working on their next mainline Mario Kart title, one where I can play with my friends online and unlock all of the karts and characters, because at the end of the day, it's all about the experiences that you have, even if there's something simple. I love these games a ton, they're very dear to me, and I still love playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with my friends whenever I get a chance to, and I'm glad that this game is one of the best sellers on the Nintendo Switch because it's just a really good one for so many people. The amount of experiences that people will have and have had with this game are wonderful. It's kind of weird to think about, but almost everyone who plays games has played a Mario Kart game, and somehow I feel like everyone has had some memory with it that they always liked. This series is magical and truly indescribable. There will never be another video game series that captures the same feeling that Mario Kart does. Thank you for watching my tribute to the Mario Kart franchise. Be sure to leave a comment about one of your favorite memories with these games too. I'd love to hear some of your own personal stories. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. Only like 2% of the people who watch my videos are subscribed, and I'd love to make videos like this more often, so please consider subscribing. It helps a ton.